Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is the Prepper's Briefing. My name is Jimmy. If you are not new here, you kind of see a different setup. We're actually out in the shop while my office is actually being worked on, kind of getting everything organized because I got kicked out of my wife's office. So, doesn't matter. I know that we haven't had any videos coming up, but you know what? It's real, uncensored. Who cares? So all I am here to do is bring you real information, the things, the ins and outs that I know about prepping, the things that I know how to be prepared for, and pass that knowledge on to you. So here I am with some more knowledge that I want to pass on. So let's go ahead and get into this. Anytime that we're talking about prepping, a lot of people start with food and water. And obviously, I want to say those are your number one things. Without food and water, you're always going to have a tough time moving on from there. But one of the biggest and the hardest things to learn for a lot of people is when things break down, your security is going to be one of the top priorities that you have to take into consideration and look into. All right, and why do I say that? Because any type of collapse, infrastructure collapse, civil unrest, natural disasters, it's not just shortages, but another issue that you're always going to have is people. And when people get desperate, they are opportunists and sometimes they can become violent. And that's something that you always have to keep in the back of your mind, that when you're ready, when you're preparing, and you always have the available things that you need, it's like a big neon flashing light that you may be an easy target for these people to come get their stuff from. Stuff that they don't have, you know what I mean? So some of the things that, we want to go over is, security. Security buys you time to gather your stuff, time to move, and time to make decisions. And that's going to be the real value that you need and that you need to focus on after your first beginning preps. Now, one of the big things that I want to talk about is light discipline. Number one, you gotta go dark. Light discipline is one of the basic and underused security talking points that people do not go over. If the power is out, or even if it isn't, you always want to avoid using light in your house because it's like a billboard. You want to block your windows, you want to keep the interior lights low, and use directional task lights for work inside only. All right, so something that we do have to talk about with that. Motion lights are a double-edged sword. They can scare someone off, yes, but they can also tell someone where you're approaching from in your own property. Always consider low-level shielded light that only lights your path, not the entire yard, and that is for your use only. And that is something very important. You need to be able to see. You don't need everyone to be able to see. All right, here is another one going along with some early warning signs like those lights. We can talk about dogs are a huge and tremendous help and early warning sign, and sometimes a very, very good basic defense tool. Now, you don't need a canine unit, don't get me wrong, but even small dogs can be used as warning signs and systems. A barking dog will wake you up. It draws attention to intruders. And if you have one, put the effort into basic training and socialization. So he does bark and alert, but he doesn't attack everybody or any mail truck that he sees. If you do not have room for a dog, consider motion activated audio alarms or simple tripwire bells for perimeter alerts. But I do highly recommend dogs. Obviously, I'm a dog lover, got probably too many of them, and I have dogs that would actually protect my family and my household. So Dogs are a very, very important part of my family unit. Now, going along that same lines, we want to use traps and passive alarms. Now, things that people don't think about: gravel pathways, hanging cans, and simple trip lines. Those are three very basic things that you can use. Gravel pathways, anybody that lives out in the country or has gravel pathways like my own driveway, you hear when people pull up. You don't always even hear the vehicle, but you do hear their vehicle on your gravel. Noise traps are cheap and effective. Gravel walkways, strings of cans, bottle traps, basically anything that converts footfall to sound. That means any type of walking around, if you can create more sound on the outer limits of your perimeter, the better, or approaching. Now, obviously, on the inside, you don't want all of those. Now, with all of those pathways, make sure that you put them on likely approaches. The idea is to get an extra warning before someone reaches your door. Place them where a trained eye would walk, not obvious spots. Now, as you can tell, we are going with a theme here. It is layers upon layers upon layers of defense. So we are going to put more layers on here, and we want to go with cameras, fences, gates, deadbolts, window bars, window film on glass if you can't get window bars. That will even slow intruders, which is a great addition to any windows that you have. Layering is your core concept. Don't rely on just one thing. Think of it like an onion. The outer layer, the boundary, the perimeter, those are your hard barriers. And then obviously as you go in, you have your interior, but you have to work your way in until you get to your last resort, and that's your final interior layer of protection. And we don't really want to make it to that interior layer of protection. Your outer boundaries are going to be your fences, hedges, and clear sight lines so that you can see someone coming. I know it sounds weird because I just threw hedges or bushes in there, but that is further away from your home. But if you see a lot of ranchers, a lot of people that are out further somewhere, or homesteads try to get up on elevated ground, or they want to be in open areas so that they can see people coming from further away. That is going to be something very important. Now, that is the same way that I try to do my property. I have barriers on certain areas, but for the most part, I can see just about everywhere. Now, inside of that, you're going to have your gravel, your motion triggers, your cameras. These are your early detectors that you're going to have. Then you're going to work on hard barriers. You're going to need good doors. You don't want big glass doors, something that people can break through and then open up your locks. So big steel sturdy doors, good locks, quality deadbolts, reinforced windows or shutters. A cheap lock is only a suggestion. Invest in hardware that buys time. A cheap lock is better than no lock, but you have to have something. I would go the extra mile. Oh, there's my early warning sign. You got the big one, you got the little one. Be afraid of the little one. Now, you have your interior fallback, and that's going to run into your safe rooms. A simple inner room, a plan for your family and everybody to move to so that you're all together. The goal isn't to win at the front door, it's to delay, detect, and decide what to do at that final position. If you can slow someone down and figure out the entire situation and scenario, when that final moment approaches, you can make that final decision on what you have to do. And at that point, hopefully, everyone in your unit actually knows what that end goal is going to actually be, and you have to be okay with that. Now, a big one that we want to talk about, something that you do in the military all the time, you have to post a watch with rotating shifts. It kind of sucks. You kind of want to be with people at all times, but you know what? Sometimes people have to sleep during the day, be awake at night. But when things are starting to get dicey, you have to add that human component. Not only can you have the barriers, the cameras, and the dogs, but sometimes you have to have that human component. And posting watch doesn't just mean sitting up in a lawn chair with a rifle 24/7. It means rotating shifts, maintaining vigilance, and having a clear handoff, letting people know what you've seen, explaining to them what was going on throughout your entire watch time frame. If there was something suspicious, it needs to be passed on. If nothing happened, nothing happened, but it has to be clearly explained to the next shift. Keep those watch times short. You want them short enough to avoid exhaustion. Use 2-people teams when possible because a tired watch is a useless watch. You want to be able to rely on another person to make sure you're staying awake and the other person is staying awake. Boredom will always cause a big issue during watch as well, and that is where you also fall into complacency traps. People will fall asleep, people will daydream, they won't watch properly. So if you can have a couple of people on watch, do that, but make sure those changeover times are short enough. Keep them to a 1-2 hour maximum if you can. If you got to go a little bit longer than that, do it, but I wouldn't try to go any more than 2 hours. All right, so let's talk about awareness and avoidance. Awareness beats weapons more often than not. Know your neighborhood rhythms, who's showing up at odd hours, any new cars in your neighborhood, the ability to read a scene, and who's nervous, who's confident is a huge part here. And most important, avoidance. Avoid conflict when you can. If you can walk away from certain situations with your life and supplies, then do it. Winning an engagement can cost everything else. A lot of people out here like to talk about what they would do in certain situations if they were put in these different types of situations. But the bottom line is every engagement is a risk on your life and every member of your unit's life, your family and your friends. So you have to be very careful in every scenario, because if you think that you may be desperate, imagine how desperate someone else may be. So avoid the conflicts in every scenario that you can. Okay, now something else that we need to worry about: communication and code words. It sounds silly, but you have to have a communication plan. 2 radios on different channels, a set of code words, and rendezvous points. If your cell phone network dies, low power FRS radios still work between houses. Agree on signals ahead of time. Noises, light flashes, or specific phrases that mean get to the safe room versus it's a drill. Now, the reasoning behind that is because you don't want to communicate to everyone else what you are doing in that scenario. Get to the safe room is not something that you want to be announcing to intruders or to anybody else while you're doing it. Now, something else I want to go over: non-lethal options and deterrence. Force isn't the only answer. I know this is going to sound silly, but there are other ways. Pepper spray, bear mace. I know it sounds extreme, bear mace. Sound deterrence, bright strobe lights, even trained guard dogs. These can stop most opportunists. They're easier to deploy, lower legal risk, and they buy you time. If you do own firearms, great, but you have to train, store them safely, and have rules of engagement before a crisis. Panic with a gun is more dangerous than a determined thief. You have to realize and remember that when things clear up, you will have legal ramifications for anything that you may have done during this civil unrest. So keep that in the back of your mind for anything that you may or may not do or the decisions that you make during this time frame. All right, community and neighborhood defense. You don't have to be a one-man fortress. I'm not saying invite everybody in, but build relationships with your neighbors that you trust. A neighborhood watch in a collapse scenario can be the difference between chaos and a coordinated defense. Share roles. Someone handles first aid, someone else handles comms, someone else monitors approaches. Trusted neighbors multiply your defense. There's always strength in numbers. Back in caveman days all the way until now. The more people that you have working to a common goal, the safer you're going to be. Okay, now this one is a touchy subject and we're going to talk about it in a following video, but fallback plans and mobility. I do not always agree with the bug out theory, but I do agree with having a bug out bag, a packed truck, and a map on the table. Always have a fallback plan. If your home becomes undefendable and unlivable, you have to have a bug out plan that is practiced and you know what you're doing. You have to have multiple routes to get out. You have to have a cache of supplies, and you have to have meetup locations. Your home is great. It is the best option, and it is your number one option. That is where I will always tell you you should be. A bug-in location is number one. A bug-out location is your final and last backup plan. Now, don't be stubborn about locations. Your family's safety is the outcome. So you have to be okay with moving. That is why I am okay with saying that there has to be a bug out option. Okay, now that brings us into training, drills, and maintenance. Practice. You have to practice. I'm not saying every day, but you have to make this a monthly routine. You have to run drills for night evacuations, safe room movements, radio failure. You have to inspect your hardware, especially inspecting your hardware monthly, replacing your batteries, rotate your food, rotate any of your supplies that you know you have to rotate. And goodness, the kids go through batteries for their Xbox controllers, so I know I rotate through my batteries. Amen. Check all your doors and windows. Make sure all of your locks are securing properly. Nothing's weak, wiggly, loose. All your screws are tight. Walk the perimeter. Skills decay without use. That's why regular practice matters more than gear. And we will also make another video about that. Practice over gear every day of the week. Okay, so I want to go back and around and recap real quick. I want to touch on ethics and legal reminders. A quick note about legality and ethics. Do what you need to do for your safety and your family's safety, but be mindful of the law and the consequences afterwards. Always use de-escalation first. Document every threat and keep records. If and when the dust settles and law enforcement does take control, being able to show measured legal actions helps more than tales of revenge. You have to be able to justify what happened during these situations. So please make sure everything's documented. The stories and everything have to align perfectly. Deborah and Jeff cannot have two conflicting stories on what happened. They have to be the same stories, and everything has to show the same way. And we can, along with that, we cannot go from A to Z. We had to have gone from A, B, C through the alphabet before we got to our end result here. All right, so let's get down to the real talk, the brass tacks. At the end of the day, good security is boring, right? It's blinders on, routines, and habits that protect you without all the drama. Most of the time, what really keeps you safe is not a firefight. It's being quiet. It's being aware, and it's not drawing attention to yourself. That is going to be the prepper's mindset. Being prior military, you're not looking for every engagement, especially with civilians. That is not the first thing that comes to my mind. But keeping my family, keeping everyone in my unit safe is number one priority, because they are not trained to deal with the same situations that I am. All right, quick checklist before I go. Number one, light discipline. Block and shield all your light. Number two, early warning alarms. Dogs, noise traps, cameras, things like that. 3, make sure you have layers of protection. Boundaries, perimeters, hard boundaries, and safe rooms. Number 4, people. Rotate your watches, communicate, and train. Number 5, have an exit plan. Mobility and caches. You guys can obviously practice this, tweak it for your property, and keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Make sure everybody can do it and everybody can remember your routine. All right, so that is enough for today. If you guys want, I'll make a follow-up that walks you through basic hardware upgrades, doors, locks, affordable camera setups, and show you how I would harden a typical suburban house on a budget. If you guys want, go ahead and drop a comment. Tell me what part you want me to deep dive on, and I will build that out for you guys. Please stay ready, stay calm. This is the Prepper's Briefing. I will see you guys in the next video.